Hello, welcome to From Caracas. I'm Laura Prada. Today we'll be speaking with Marianny Rosado. She's an internationalist. With her today we are going to be approaching and trying to understand better how these economic projections for Latin America made by the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic that is hitting worldwide. With her, we're trying to understand it better and how some countries like Venezuela are finding alternative to face it. Welcome, Marianny.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to start reading some extract from the CLAC and how they've explained this current situation. And they said exceptional measures are required to confront an unprecedented crisis. There will be no progress without international cooperation and solidarity. This was said by Alicia Bárcena, the president of the CLAC, the executive secretary of the CLAC. How can we understand this in this time of COVID-19?
Well, this coronavirus disease crisis has got to do with the stopping of the whole economy, and what they are planning to do or to suggest to other countries to do is what we've been doing since Chavez's government began. Back in 2000, we started policies regarding feeding, Bolivarian school feeding programs, and different programs on distribution of food, on vulnerable population. We've been doing things regarding protection of our population, regarding all the social policy in our country, that now we are seeing this as a suggestion, as a proposal of the CLAC, and we say hi to that. We are finding with them a convergent point, but this kind of, I must say, this answer they give, mixing the private sector with these solutions, might not be the exact thing we've been doing, because what we have been seeing on the private sector is that they do not sacrifice the profit rates. So what's going on in that sector maybe won't help as much as they think. Regarding our experience, it's not going to do as much as they think they could do to raise up the numbers and to give some solutions like liquidity. We've been seeing like liquidity makes the prices soar, and also it happens that in that uncertain climate, economic uncertain climate, the private sector, they work for themselves, and throughout the whole commercial chain, it happens that they do just start increasing rapidly and aggressively prices. So we find out that maybe that's not gonna help as much as they think. If we look at ourselves in this mirror.
But ICLAC is not the only international organization calling to solidarity, calling to cooperation. We've also seen the World Health Organization, especially in this case of the COVID-19 pandemic, calling for international cooperation and solidarity. And we've seen that in Venezuela also, how Venezuela, even with this blockade from United States and the economic struggle it's living with it, how Venezuela has been able to keep that cooperation and that solidarity among the countries, the neighboring countries, especially the Caribbean countries.
Well, first of all, regional integration has got to do with the key of the solution, of course. So that's a convergence point. But it happens that this is not the first time we talk about that. We've been doing efforts since 25 years ago in order to approach ourselves to Latin America and to keep in touch, to make some policies together, to increase commerce, intra-region commerce. To solidarity is also one of our lines. It's got to do with our foreign affairs policy. So it's not new for us because we believe in that. We've been doing that. Cuba, Nicaragua, these countries in a time also Ecuador, Uruguay, they were all together. We have to look at ALBA, we have to look at UNASUR, CELAC. All this got to do with the Venezuelan effort to get together on different spaces of relationship within the region.
Is that leadership from Venezuela also the one that could make possible to turn in a different direction those projections made by the CLAC? Because to some of the part of the reports, they say that the South American economy will contract at minus 5.2%.
Well, we are about to see more than 160 million poor people, more poor people in this continent. If we plus together United States poverty with Southern poverty, so what's going on between us has got to do with how can we learn from each other, because we have a lot to learn from Latin America too. They have to learn from us, and we have to get together and put together some criteria about how do we evaluate, how do we see, how do we interpret, for example, these economic numbers, this situation, because first of all, without regional integration, it's not going to be possible. Second of all, we all have successful experiences, which they deserve to be learned about. And also, I think we are going to be together suffering from the same problems. And it's in us. There's a concern about how do we treat each other, because Venezuela, because one of the things is experts stimulation. The ECLAC is talking about how experts have to be increased in order to help the whole situation to come up from the crisis. But there is a thing. We are a producing country, and we have a problem with our neighbors. They legalize the manufacturing products and different stuff we produce here, and they legalize it after they are pulled out illegally from our country. So we have to talk about this kind of things. How are we treating each other regarding a healthy relationship, a commercial healthy relationship, and social investment is the other thing. I think it's gonna be one of the keys that we have to increase and stimulate a lot in order to protect our people.
I want you to explain a little bit more about this social investment, but first I want to ask because earlier, before starting the interview, you were talking to me about the point of convergence and the differences between these economic projections made by ECLAC and the actual, for countries like Venezuela in this case, the instability in the international markets due to the oil prices. How that also affects the economies of the Latin American countries?
Well, we have a 100-year term of oil exploitation. So in this century, we've experienced a lot of changes regarding all this transformation of agricultural kind of country to an industrial kind of country. But the rest of the countries in Latin America, they have been, going through kind of the same changes, some more, some less. There are a lot of difference between us. But the opposite approach we have with CEPAL, with ECLAC, is that they think that the role of the private sector must be higher, must be bigger, and we think in our experience that it's not gonna be as helpful as they think. So that's an opposite approach, and we could sustain that what we have to do more is to increase the social investment, and of course, as they do say, agriculture investment, because commerce, tourism, restaurants, hotels, and manufacturing are the bigger affected ones.
Exactly. Those have been the areas most affected by the pandemic. And now that you touch again social investment and agricultural investment, I want you to explain a little bit more the Venezuelan experience on this specific topic. Because Venezuela in these last 20 years have made an important social investment.
Well, we started with President Chavez. When our bank became public, most of our banks public when they were born, we said that 30% of the agriculture portfolio of investment should go right away to small producers in our fields. So that policy brought some security regarding feeding and food production, and we found out that's a correct policy. So maybe that should be not only a measure you take on 6 months, on a 6 month term, but you should make it as a policy, because it has to do with the structural problems we have. When we made that transformation into industrial countries, we abandoned our fields. We abandoned this activity of agricultural development. So to take it over again, thinking about food security, feeding security, we have to invest in that, and as an obligation, as an structural measure over the time, not only 6 months.
As we were talking, in this time of the global pandemic, we've also seen, besides different international organizations calling for cooperation and solidarity, we've also seen this call for investment in small production enterprises, small producers, and they've been calling for the importance of that and in social investment. Is that possible to do in Latin America, to invest in social?
It's possible, and it's necessary. That's another key. We are talking about 2.7 million enterprises. From them, 2.6, according to the CLAC, they are micro, small, and medium enterprises, especially micro enterprises. So that's a kind of production on a level that builds a country. We have to see, for example, Ecuador's example. They produce in the milk industry. They produce in small units. They get together the whole production and they export. So they are a potence. Can I say that word?
Yes.
They are a potence on exports because of that. Because of they have this base on small producers, and they can export properly as a country with same policies on quality, on type of product, on presentation, and all the stuff. So if you can do that, you can make yourself you can present yourself as an exporting country with success, we could say. So that kind of investment, it's very important. It's got to do with our security. It's got to do with how are we going to feed all our population in these times, considering one thing that's going on from maybe 15 years ago. 15 years ago, since the United States became the first importer and the first exporter of food in this hemisphere. So they control the variables of this crisis. So if they control these variables, we have to work against that. How? Well, investing in our fields, investing in our micro enterprises, the smallest ones.
What kind of benefits does that bring to the societies?
Well, I just said security,
But besides security,
also this economic dynamism, liquidity, but an organic liquidity, with people with the capability to buy in the market. We don't make this bet on the market 100% because we've experienced too much. We've been going through too much with the monopolies, and it's been really hard because it's kind of difficult to control them, considering the size of our economies. But certainly, we have to go that way. We have to look for the way of making our countries to pay attention to this relationship. We have no income for oil exports, so this is a different situation for us 100 years after, and that's a challenge. That's a big challenge. There is another economy that has to grow up right away if we want to survive, and of course we have to do it together.
So there's an alternative to come out of this crisis caused by the pandemic.
Of course, solidarity, prices, fair prices, politics, and we have to make a bunch of measures and politics all together in these international spaces, so we can build a different thing, a different way of making commerce within each other, because we've been doing the IMF recipe for too long, and they know it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and it won't work in this crisis. So it's time, and there's an important opportunity to change our minds about how do we evaluate what's going on, what we've been doing. For example, foreign investment, it didn't bring the whole thing they wanted, they expected. And Alicia Barzana, she's been speaking about that when they do these presentations on the ECLAC evaluation and statistics studies on this term and on this issue. And I think it's very interesting that they cannot find an explanation, a healthy explanation to say why this direct foreign investment didn't work as much as they wanted. For example, we have to say that maybe less than 6 jobs, formal jobs, are produced by each $1 million of investment. So it's a very low rate, and increasing that, it's kind of impossible. And in this kind of scenarios, it's less possible, because private ends are also are all the time accumulating, and they are not going to change. They are not going to change that. So we don't have to put our bet on them. We have to put our bet on people, on small business, very small business, and make a different treatment pack of policies regarding monopolies and big enterprises.
Unfortunately, this pandemic has also opened our eyes and our countries, our people's eyes. Also in the middle of this crisis, we've seen governments that in Latin America that have been asking funds from the International Monetary Fund. Yeah. They've been willing to succumb to this debt, like Chile, also Ecuador asked for this funding. If you have a solution in your hand, if you have an alternative, not to go on a debt with the International Monetary Fund that you know what is going to bring to you, why not bet on better on the society, on social investment?
Well, that's a poison fund. What IMF has to offer to us. It's a poison fund because it has conditions. These conditions normally they low down all the social investment. It's got to do with health, less funds for health, less funds for feeding programs, and for free educational programs. So we're not going to sacrifice that. We want to have a free education for everybody. We want to have food programs because it has to do with the difference between being alive or not. If you have or not this program in the Bolivarian school or in your community, a house that fits you if you don't have an employment, or maybe what we've been doing with Bono de la Patria, which is kind of a payment that the government makes regularly to the whole population, 6 million of homes and families. We have to say that that's protecting human rights, that's protecting life, and that's what we are doing. So our economy, when it's about a lot of money, most of the time, great amounts of money, they go right to monopolies with very, very few enterprises, which are really, really great and big, and it doesn't makes you sure that's gonna do with the health of the whole society. So our bets, as you just said, should be to the people, directly to the people. And maybe the IMF is not the ideal for us. If we are going to look for a foreign fund for us, maybe the IMF is not the ideal. When we should get together and put together our pockets and make these funds we've been talking about for so long, like ALBA or Banco del Sur, or all of these alternatives that we made years ago, that we need them now.
Thank you very much, Marianny. We've seen recently that this fund is finally coming to effect after the ALBA meeting due to COVID-19, and many more alternatives that are also coming, like the health fund also made by ALBA to face crisis like the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much for being with us here from Caracas to understand better how the Latin American community is binding together and trying to face this crisis, this economical crisis placed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for being with us. Until next time.